It was a dream that began over 100 years ago to turn areas that routinely flooded and were underutilized into parks, bike trails, ball fields, and green space. The Big Sioux River meanders its way through the city, inviting residents to behold in its beauty, take part in its recreational opportunities, and enjoy the serenity of its cool waters. The river comes to a majestic pinnacle as it tumbles down the quartzite stone, cutting through Falls Park. This is the story of the Sioux Falls River Greenway, a greenway system with close to 20 miles of bike trails that have grown to be a focal point of the city. The dream was first brought to the forefront in the early 1900s, but it took 2 city employees in the 1970s to bring it to realization.
Hi, I'm Rick Noby. I served as mayor of Sioux Falls from 1974 to 1984, and this is...
I'm Steve Metley. I worked for the city of Sioux Falls as a city planner for 31 years, from 1974 to 2005.
We're here today to talk a little bit about the river in the background and flowing by us and some of the history involved in it. Steve has a great story about a gentleman by the name of Spellerberg.
Yeah, for the first river plan or greenway plan that we did for the city, we quoted a man named Spellerberg, who was the first superintendent of parks for the city of Sioux Falls back in the early 1900s. He, in a plan that he did, actually drew a greenway plan and suggested that someday the riverfront should be owned by the city. So he was the first one to come up with the idea and led us to what we have today in the city of Sioux Falls, the wonderful, beautiful Sioux River Greenway.
In the intervening years from when he wrote that first plan to about the early 1970s, the river wasn't in very good shape. Falls Park was not a fun place to go. Where the Queen Bee Mill sits today, that literally was a junk yard. Literally, there were car bodies in the middle of the Queen Bee Mill. There was no bridge across the river that we could cross from one side to the other. There were power lines over there. The city of Sioux Falls had their yards there for their equipment. All along the river here, there were industrial uses or there were no uses that were good for the river, and there wasn't much green grass anywhere except weeds, and in the river there were lots of junk cars, and we were polluting the river pretty badly also.
We were. Shortly before we did the River Greenway plan, we took a hard look at the river and went after all of the point pollution sources, all the points in the river where there was actually sewage running into the river. We found 37 of them, and we cleaned them all up, and the river today, because I think of some of those efforts, is much cleaner than it was when I used to swim in it when I was a kid. So.
There were beginnings of the River Greenway before there was a River Greenway. Sherman Park along the river, the Great Plains Zoo was over there. In the southern part of town, Tut Hill Park was one of the original components of it, although I don't think anybody that was doing those kinds of things back then thought in terms of the whole greenway system. It wasn't until the late 60s, mid to late 60s, when a group called RISE formed a citizens group made up of some elected officials and some government people, started talking about what we could do better with the river. And from that River Improvement Society, a lot of public support was garnered, and people started paying attention to the river in a positive way. Steve's history and my history on this get very intimate and personal starting in 1974. That's when I was elected mayor. I appointed Steve as planning director. And the community had talked about the river. There were several groups. There was RISE, the Parks Board was interested, Community Development Committee was interested, the Chamber had some interest, and they weren't competing with each other, but they weren't working together. And so as a brash young 27-year-old mayor, I didn't know what I couldn't do, so I asked the planning department, which Steve was heading, to put together a greenway plan for the 1970s and beyond. And his staff and him and the Planning Commission and a whole other group of citizens put together the first River Greenway plan, and that became the blueprint which we have followed and expanded upon over the years.
Some of the things that plan addressed included restoration of Falls Park, opening up of Phillips Avenue to the falls, and developing a bicycle trail on the Greenway that encircles the city as we have today. And it also that plan called for protecting the 100-year floodplain, not allowing developers to build in the 100-year floodplain and keeping it in a natural state. So I think we've accomplished 95% of what our initial goals were.
The 100-year floodplain was actually a very significant component of this, because without us committing to do that, Yankton Trail Park, where those fantastic soccer fields, probably wouldn't exist. That would have been developed in some manner, shape, or form. The same with Spencer Park, Tomar Park. Some of those areas along there probably would have been development fairly close to the riverbank, and we probably would have had to put up dikes around it. Now we're standing in one of the nicest parts of the River Greenway, in my opinion. It's Pasley Park. But before we start talking about this, I want to talk about a couple of early donations to the modern day River Greenway system. Just to the north of us is Norland Park. A family by the name of Norland, they were in the concrete business here, gave the city their stretch of land, which was 26th Street south of, about a quarter of a mile or so along the River Greenway, right across from Leif Erikson Day Camp. Right about the same time, immediately to the north of 26th Street, the Downtown Rotary Club gave the city a pretty good chunk of land. And those were kind of the first two public donations of the modern day River Greenway plan. And the park we're standing in right now has a real interesting history also.
This park was donated to the city of Sioux Falls. It's 55 acres. It was donated by the Pasley family, Max and Dorothy Pasley. And the story with that is I was heard about Max moving his corporate operation out of the city of Sioux Falls. When I heard that, I drove down to his office and walked in unannounced and asked Max if he would be willing to consider a gift of land to the city of Sioux Falls in this general area. And he had this 55-acre parcel, and he said, "Steve, I'd love to do it. Let's figure something out." So he and I that day talked it out and decided that half of the land would go toward Bantam baseball in the city, because at that time we needed another Bantam baseball complex, and the other half would become a nature area in honor of his wife, who loved to feed the wildlife along the river. And so half of the land is now used for baseball, and the other half is used for habitat for everything from raccoons to foxes and
don't forget the deer.
And a few deer here and there too. Yeah.
One of the things that I think we did really well all around the river was the blend of what Steve's talking about. Over here is the river. We've left it pretty much alone. We mow the grass and stuff here, but it's a fairly rural setting. And then on the other side, here's this urban use of whether it's soccer fields or baseball or Bantam this or volleyball fields, whatever it happens to be. So I think one of the things that's great about this particular River Greenway facility is that it truly is multi-purpose. You can walk, you can skateboard, you can bicycle, you can play baseball, you can do all kinds of things along the river. It's not just a single purpose facility.
On the other side of the river is Tomar Park, and Tomar Park was given to the city by Tom and Mary Reardon. It's again about a 60-acre parcel. It now has volleyball, tennis, playground facilities, and has become a very great asset to the city.
And so don't forget soccer fields or soccer
well,
fields.
Well, yeah, lots of soccer fields, and which continues down the river into Yankton Trail Park. I think between the two of them, we have 32 soccer fields in that area, and it's one of the finest soccer complexes in the Midwest. We're standing here at 229 and the Big Sioux River. We're at the point where we now have a canoe launch, but it's also the point Yankton Trail used to go through a high point in the river here, and now has a bridge that was built over 100 years ago as part of our bicycle trail system. And it's just, back when Rick and I started on this greenway, back when the JCs would sponsor a cleanup along the river, there were car bodies along this shoreline and that shoreline to help stabilize the shorelines in this area. That's how non-recreational the Big Sioux River was. So we've come a long ways.
Yeah, this bridge, the old bridge that's behind us, it was going to be condemned, it was going to be torn down, and one of the things we did was save that bridge, and it's one of the iconic, for many people, it's one of the iconic parts of the River Greenway, because it shows a real interesting blend of the history of the area, and then of course with the Interstate 229 bridge behind us, kind of the old and the new thing along the way, and that really has made a huge difference. We need to spend a little bit more time, in my opinion, Steve, talking about some of the donations. And along this stretch of the river, going all the way up to West 12th Street and beyond, there were some interesting donations.
Yeah, we would never have been able to complete this Sioux River Greenway as quickly as we did, and that was over what, a 30-40 year period, without gifts, great gifts of land. Don Dunham, the developer, gave us 90 acres of land along Skunk Creek, which is also part of the Big Sioux River Greenway and has a bike trail that goes through it. And that leads into Legacy Park, which was given to the city by the Kurt Keene family, and also Bill and Carolyn Hinks were wonderful donors of land along that same stretch. Going further out to the T. Ellis Road, you get to Family Park, which was given to the city by Carl and Marietta Sukup, and it is now a beautiful recreational lake, and will soon double in size because the land adjoining it will also be made into a lake as gravel and sand is taken out of it. So, and
that'll link up with Skunk Creek, because the city's already got plans to put that to Skunk Creek, where the outdoor campus is today and Sertoma Park is today. That was owned by a family, the Brown family, and we worked out a deal with them, and they sold us that land at a ridiculously low price. And a guy by the name of Charlie Kearns had this vision of creating what is now the outdoor campus, where people that live in the city could experience a little bit of what it's like to camp and to be out in the country. And so he was one of the local pushers of that particular project. And I think by and large, most people would say the outdoor campus is one of the great focal points of the Big Sioux River Greenway in Sioux Falls.
And it's a state-run park here in the city. And it's a fabulous way for your children to learn about nature. And it's just another one of the great attributes of protecting the 100-year floodplain and making all of that available to the public here at Sioux Falls. Another family that's been a great assist to the city of Sioux Falls and development of the bicycle trails and the Greenway here in Sioux Falls is the Ellman family. The Ellman family contributed mightily toward the development of a rest area, watering spot,
access point
to the river at West 12th Street and the Big Sioux River, on land that was really going to waste, and they provided the funding necessary to develop a rest area along the bicycle trails, and it's done wonderful things.
One of the other things we need to talk about, we've talked about all these gifts, and certainly that was critical.
Yep.
But the governing body, the Sioux Falls City Commission back in those days, we committed a lot of local and federal money to this project. Yankton Trail Park, we bought that land. And we bought the Queen Bee Mill. Most people think that was the city's for years. It wasn't. It was privately held, and it was a junkyard, and it wasn't a very nice junkyard. Across from Faywick Park in downtown Sioux Falls, we bought that land. That was a place where they recycled batteries. And there was, along that stretch of the river at one time, there were literally car batteries right at the bank of the river. And
right in downtown Sioux Falls, and that's how much the river has changed. We now have what we call the River Walk downtown, which the eventuality is coming, that you'll be able to leave Falls Park and walk along the river with hotels, restaurants, office buildings, apartments on either side of the river, and be able to walk up to Faywick Park, cross back over, and walk back down the other side, and get about 1.5 to 2 mile walk in while you're enjoying the beautiful Big Sioux River walk.
We should talk a little bit about the future in the time that we've got left here. When we started this, Steve talked about Mr. Spellerberg's vision for the river, and other people have had their visions along the way. One of the other people who we didn't mention in this, who was a strong proponent of this long before it was politically popular, was a guy by the name of Earl McCart. He was a Parks Commissioner when I was elected back in 1974. Earl was a huge proponent of doing something with the river. And one of his visions, and I shared it with him, was the expansion of the Big Sioux River Greenway far beyond just the city of Sioux Falls. Earl talked about starting up at Lake Campeska, up in Watertown, and having the River Greenway, as it is in Sioux Falls today, go all the way down to where it meets the Missouri River down in Sioux City. Now that's a pretty grand plan, but the city is working towards expanding it outside the city limits.
He was a bit of a mentor to Rick and I both. Rick was 27 years old when he was elected mayor. He hired me to be the old guy. I was 28. But we both learned to love and respect Earl McCart. He was a great naturalist and a great environmentalist, and was one of the driving forces to get this greenway done, and we can't say enough good things about him.
This project is never going to get done. There's always going to be something to do along the way. Steve and I happen to be in the right place at the right time to help things get started in a more formal basis, and to kind of shepherd it through the process for the years that I served as mayor and he served as planning director. Fortunately, the leadership, political leadership, and the business leadership in this community has embraced this thing, and it's the beautiful thing about it is this is everybody's project, and there's literally thousands of people that have helped make this thing happen, and there's a pride and ownership in this, which is what we wanted. It isn't just, you know, we don't need to name this after anybody. We don't need any of that kind of stuff. We just need to keep this going. And right now, I feel it's in really good hands, and with the people working on water quality and the work that the Park and Recreation Department is doing in the planning office and the leadership from the City Council and the Mayor, we're in good shape, and I'm happy about it.
Hi, I'm Mike Cooper, Director of Planning and Building Services for the City of Sioux Falls, and I've been with the City of Sioux Falls since 1986. During that time, I've been involved in both the City Planning Office as well as the City Parks and Recreation Department. And when you look back over that time period, for me personally, the number of changes that have occurred along the Big Sioux River Greenway, it's been a very interesting story. When I came to the city in '86, we were working on the very first downtown development plan. And at that time, one of the big focuses was on this grand idea of extending Phillips Avenue up to Falls Park, and also looking at ways that we could improve, particularly the downtown area of the river corridor. But by that time, a lot of changes had already occurred. The Beetle Greenway area had developed, which was an old industrial warehouse district that was renovated into an open space with parks as well as a residential development really close to the downtown area for people that wanted to work in the downtown area. And then we also had by that time seen a number of farm fields and floodplain areas transferred into city parks, just the beginnings of some of those. And you can go around the circle to Tuthill Park, Spencer Park, Yankton Trail, and those areas. So that transformation had really started by the 80s with the bike trail, but especially within the downtown area, we started to see more of a focus on what we could do in terms of improving the river itself, but also encouraging more development, especially within the downtown area adjacent to the Big Sioux River. In the late 80s, we started looking at ways that we could improve the Greenway and promote more economic development within the downtown area. The Country Inn and Suites was probably one of the first projects that I was involved with, right adjacent to the river. We actually created a partnership to have a public open space on the west side of the hotel that could be used, and that continues on today. Since that time, you know, some of the real success stories have been Sharapa Place office building development, the Hilton Garden Inn, Raven Industries have made substantial improvements to their property. So we're starting to see kind of the real push for more downtown development, and there's just going to be more opportunities like that in the future as we look going north up towards Falls Park as well as south towards Faywick Park. You know, most people probably would look at the Greenway and really focus on the recreation, entertainment aspects of it, which is very key, but we continue to look at what's the overall economic impact of our Greenway system, from bringing visitors into the community, whether they're using a soccer field or a softball field or football fields, and then the visitors that come downtown for special events that we see more and more demand for, whether it's Riverfest or for Falls Park West special events. And the sculpture walk has been a big addition to the downtown, so I think without the Greenway improvements, we would have less impact in terms of visitors. That really helps drive our economy. It helped promote more development in terms of businesses and residential demand. So now we're really starting to see, with that economic impact, especially within the downtown area, the number of new projects that we're going to see going into downtown, whether it's residential or office, is really going to start to escalate pretty dramatically, I think. And I think a lot of that you can really point back to the early development of the Big Sioux River and the improvements that we're making, because even if you're not going to put your hand or your toe in the water, people still look at that water resource as really a nice amenity to have. And how many cities can you look at around the country that have a major water body that really flows around the city and through the heart of the city? So it's a fantastic resource that we have. We've done great things with it. And as we look forward into the next 5, 10, 20 years, it's just going to continue to get even better and better.
Hello, my name is Don Kearney, Director of Parks and Recreation, and pleased to be here to talk about the Downtown River Greenway, the River Greenway Park System, and what it means to our overall park system here in Sioux Falls. Really, the River Greenway, as it snakes through Sioux Falls, it's an incredible facility where over the last 40 or 50 years we've really turned it into a gem of our park system. So if you think about Cherry Rock and Riverdale, Yankton Trail Park, Spencer, Sertoma, all those areas along the River Greenway really are the backbone of our park system. Many of those parks have amenities that the community enjoys today and will enjoy for many years to come. It has picnic shelters, it has playgrounds, it has athletic fields. Yankton Trail Park is one of the premier sports complexes we have in the region. Spencer Park is a great youth facility that we have, along with the dog park. Pasley Park, we have a great system of ball fields there that are great tournament quality fields that really support the youth baseball program here in Sioux Falls. We also have Cherry Rock, and they have sand volleyball courts at those locations. It really supports our adult leagues. So as you can see, everything from Falls Park all the way over to Sertoma is really that greenway stretch of our Downtown River Greenway and the park system portion of our greenway. And without that, Sioux Falls wouldn't have the park system that it has today. So we're really pleased with the efforts of folks that came before us to preserve those lands for development of these parks. One of the most outstanding features of our River Greenway is our trail system. It is one of the most unique trail systems in the country. We hear it time and time again from people that travel all over the country to ride bikes, and they say that our trail system in Sioux Falls is so unique because you never have to cross the city street over the 20-mile loop that we have throughout the River Greenway. And so that's just an incredible amenity. And the reason why that's important is that it's family friendly. You don't have to worry about crossing major intersections. You can travel 20 miles uninterrupted without having to stop at intersection or a street light. And it's really a phenomenal facility that, again, people that we talk to that do a lot of trail riding really say is very unique to Sioux Falls and very unique in the bike trail world. People use it all the time. We did recently install some trail counters, and to give you an idea of the amount of use that our trails get, our main trail loop through town and some of the adjacent spurs in a 60-day period with 6 counters counted over 350,000 trail users, both walkers and riders. And so you can see by those numbers that the amount of use that our trail system gets is just incredible. We're really excited about the next 40 years. We see that the River Greenway is going to continue to develop, and that we will continue to actually look at building trails on both sides of the river throughout the entire bike trail loop, and we'll also continue to extend trails and development adjacent to those trails up the Skunk Creek corridor as you work from Family Park and Legacy Park all the way out to University Center north to Interstate 90. We also anticipate that we'll continue to develop on both sides of the river as you go out with the Big Sioux River north towards Rice Street into that Brandon area. As we continue to develop the River Greenway, you know, we anticipate, like the existing River Greenway, we have floodplain areas that we will continue to develop, and so we'll plan to put trails in those areas as well, but also all the other amenities that you see through town now, sports fields, shelters, other park enhancements like playgrounds and other furnishings that are going to really help to support a growing community like Sioux Falls. And so while we're celebrating 40 years of the River Greenway master plan, we've got another 40 years ahead, and so we're not done, Sioux Falls. We're really excited about the future. We have plans for future development, and our trail system is only going to get bigger and better, and the areas adjacent to that River Greenway system and our waterways are going to develop and grow along with them.
The story of the Big Sioux River Greenway is over 100 years old, but has only recently started to reach its potential. Expanded bike trails, more ball fields, and places to stop and enjoy the beauty of flowing water and the wind through the trees make the Greenway a destination for today and years to come. For more information on the Greenway and parks throughout Sioux Falls, log on to siouxfalls.org/parks.